Hi Joggies, it's Mr. Caleb again. This is the last session of study with Mr. K. I've decided for Singapore cluster, I will not go through the topical, go it. Yeah, I will actually look at it as a whole cluster because I think what students need is really the organization of the whole cluster. So I'm going to try my best to try to organize this whole cluster, and you students can actually carry on uh, to understand and learn more about it, and also perhaps the examples that's needed to understand the Singapore cluster. All right. So for Singapore cluster, it can be quite a massive cluster. So I'm going to go through quite slowly. Okay. The first two chapters, first topic 1.1. Okay. Topic 1.1, it talks about the natural characteristics of Singapore. Okay, it talks about the size of 700 square kilometers. It talks about how many offshore islands we have, what are the main island. It talks about Singapore being low lying. I think that's very important because that will be one of our challenges, low lying. All right. And what is the climate of Singapore? Okay, we look at tropical equatorial climate, and we experience both monsoons, the northeast and the southwest monsoon. Okay, then whereby we experience more of the northeast monsoon that brings us rain. So that is climate itself. Okay, so we have highest rainfall experienced during the monsoon season, and we've gotten this moisture from South China Sea. Okay, what are the ecosystems that exist in Singapore because of its geographical location? Okay, we have our ecosystems are actually are actually thriving. Okay, we have land-based ecosystems and coastal ecosystems. Our land base are mainly our parks, our four natural nature reserves such as Bukit Timah Central, Catchment Nature Reserve, Sungai Buloh, and Labrador. And our dominant land-based ecosystem is actually tropical rainforest. This we have actually talked about it in segment geography. For our coastal ecosystems, we are talking about so we have land base, we have coastal as well. For our coastal ecosystem, we are talking about how our intertidal areas, our mangroves, and our coral reefs. One example is the Sungai Buloh wetland reserves. Okay, and we do have intertidal areas in Labrador. We do have mangroves in Sungai Buloh or even Chik Jawa in Pulau Ubin, and we do have coral reefs that help us to protect our coastal regions. Okay, so that is for 1.1. For 1.2, we talk about the human characteristics. Okay, human characteristics. Uh, Economically, we are a diversified, uh, economy, whereby we concentrate both on the manufacturing industry and also the service industry, right? And what are our social characteristics? Basically, we are quite a globalized world, a country. Okay, we are densely populated. Our use of technology is actually quite high with a mobile penetration rate of 158%, which means each of us own at least 1.5 worth of mobile phones. That's quite interesting, isn't it? And our political characteristics, I won't touch much about this, but uh, Singapore's government is celebrated for its strong governance, dynamic governance, okay, historically and even the current um, political scene is that the PAP, People's Action Party, is the one that has the control over government, and they have been doing well, right, in terms of many, I would say, ideas, and also in terms of charting where our Singapore is going to, right? And moreover, politically, We are also an active contributor to global initiatives such as UN, region initiatives as well, ASEAN. Okay, all right, and there are many other international platforms that we are in as well. So with that in mind, okay, 1.3 looks into the vulnerabilities. Okay, the vulnerabilities of Singapore. Okay, there are many vulnerabilities, but you will understand that first of all, the first factor is actually limited land. With our limited land and natural resources, this is actually our first vulnerability. It is difficult to achieve sustainable development, right? Because land use is a problem. Okay, how can we uh, weigh land use? How then can we juggle the competing demands for our land, right? So, like for example, the Dover Forest, which was zoned for residential development in 2020, is sparked concerns, right? So we are cutting down forests for residential users. There are concerns. How can we protect our ecosystem and at the same time provide a solution for more residents to sustain the economic sustainability of the country, because there needs to be a certain population to support Singapore's economy, right? Second, we talk about second we talk about the vulnerability to our food, our water, and also energy insecurities. Okay, there are many insecurities. I won't touch on all, but basically food insecurity. Okay, mostly we rely on imported food. 90% is imported. Okay, and yeah, that is our vulnerability. So once this imported food is being controlled or reduced, Singaporeans won't have enough to eat. Water security, likewise, we are dependent on imported water as well. Okay, and it is very hard for us to collect rainwater due to our size, due to our small sized, and it is very hard to build new reservoir because we have limited land, right? So it is important to note that these are our insecurities. And in terms of energy, okay, we do not have domestic fossil fuel resources. We don't have any natural resources, and therefore we are very susceptible to any disruptions, supply chain disruptions, such as the Russian-Ukraine war, and prices may increase. So these are our vulnerabilities. Another big huge vulnerability is in terms of the changes in demographics. Right now we are currently at about 5.64 million people, and we have three challenges, right? First of all, there's decreasing birth rate. Second, we have an aging population. And last but not least, we have a diverse society. And socially, these are very big challenges for us. For example, decreasing birth rate, meaning to say there is not the total fertility rate is 1.04, which means every couple are only producing one baby. Alright, that means they are not even able to replace both parents at all. Okay, the replacement rate is about 2. That then will be safe. And there are later marriages, okay, childbearing and later childbearing ages. The median age of first time mothers has increased from 28 to 31. So this has made us very vulnerable, okay, because it actually leads to aging population, okay, because of this low fertility rate. And this makes us very vulnerable because more resources has to be allocated to care for the aging population, more importantly, there is an increase in dependency or independence. Who are the dependents? It is usually the aged and also the babies, right? And last but not least, it is about the diverse society. For diverse society, we do have a huge diverse society whereby we have citizens, we also have PRs, internationals, so on and so forth. So the needs of people are very different, and sometimes they cause misunderstanding or disagreement, right? And changing demographic can also, these changing demographics eventually will lead to labor shortages and economic slowdown. And these are our vulnerabilities, right? How we are going to achieve. So what have we been doing for labor shortages? Migrant workers and foreign talents form parts of the workforce, but because there are migrants and professionals that comes here to work, okay, there are leakages as well. Whatever they earn, they will send back to their home countries. Okay, there are leakages as well, right? Last but not least is about uh, external uncertainties. There are many uncertainties that's happening around the world today. Uh, for example, economic uncertainties. Okay, we do have uh, global geopolitical tensions. We do have fiscal deficits globally. What is fiscal deficit? That means the amount of debts that's being owned to different countries. It is very unstable right now. Okay, and the social, so that is economic. Okay, there are also social uncertainties as well. Socially, it for Singapore locally, it is the social issues are usually related to equality, inclusiveness, and quality of life. All right, and with rapid technological changes, it could put pressure on an aging population. And last but not least, okay, we talk about environmental challenges as well. All right. Okay, next, let's look at the vulnerability to climate change. Okay, there are other external challenges. Climate change, which we'll talk about later. Okay, pandemics, which we have experienced during the COVID-19, and also financial crisis, which we have experienced in 1997, the Asian financial crisis, right? So there's that. Okay, that's for 1.3. So you can see vulnerabilities is talking about 1.3. So where is 1.4? 1.4 actually shapes the whole cluster. It is talking about being resilient. Okay, resilience. Alright, so while we have vulnerabilities, we are actually quite resilient. And being resilient is because of our ability to survive. Okay, what have we survived? We have survived national crisis. We have survived economic uh, recessions. We have survived pandemics. Okay, and we bounce back. Okay, from these crises. And how do we adapt? Okay, Singapore has always been a place whereby we constantly innovate to adapt to changing circumstances. For example, food. Okay, while we are importing food, we are diversifying, okay, the imports so that we are not over reliant. Okay, and we are actually trying to encourage growing locally and growing overseas as well. So we are adapting to our food vulnerabilities. Okay, and how does Singapore really thrive? Okay, we thrive by having a competitive economy. We thrive uh, by having high quality of living, and last but not least, by having a sustainable environment, right? So we continue to thrive to become. These are our, I would say, we our goals. Okay, we strive to achieve them. These are our goals, so that Singapore will continue to become a livable and sustainable city. Right. Okay, so that is actually 1.4. All right. So for that is our this is topic 1 done. For topic 2 focuses on the other clusters, and it focuses on two things. Okay, it focuses on challenges. Okay, and I've subdivided them into global challenges, regional challenges, and hybrid challenges. And it also focuses on opportunities. That's what I'm going to look into right now. Okay, so for 2.1, it focuses on climate challenges. What challenges can climate change bring? The impacts. Okay, make sure you know the impacts of climate change. We have done this in other chapters, so I will not dwell in it. Okay, impacts of climate change would be rising sea level, there will be impact. Rising daily mean temperature, there will be impact. Changing weather patterns, there will be impacts as well. And what are the challenges that's involved? Okay, the challenges involved will be there will be more floods, there will be urban heat island effect, there will be more vector-borne diseases, there will be threat to biodiversity, there will be threat to food security, water insecurity as well. So these are challenges that we'll face. These are the impacts and challenges. Then we move on to opportunities. Okay, so for opportunities, what kind of opportunities can we look into? We can look into land reclamation. Okay, innovation in that. We can look into coastal management. We can look into innovation in health resilience. Okay, all the example, please go and look through. Okay, there is investment in high-tech farming and investment in water tech. So these are opportunities that can be tapped upon, right? And next, let us now go on to, so this is actually a global challenge. So this is 2.1. Let's go on to 2.2, which is I would put it as a regional challenge, because regionally, okay, our geographical location is it's near the Sunda megatrust, right? The impacts is that there is what are the impacts of tectonic hazards? Okay, we are protected by the Indonesia archipelago. Okay, our distance from plate boundaries, we are not very near, but the closest is actually Sunda megatrust, about 500 km away. And last but not least, our distance from volcanoes. We are rarely affected by volcanoes, but if there is a mega eruption, we may experience regional impacts such as ashfall covering the whole region, so on and so forth. So there will be challenges as well. Okay, so what are the challenges? The challenges would be that like I mentioned, ash clouds from volcanic eruptions can affect people's health. It can disrupt economy. Okay, an earthquake may affect some parts of Singapore, and these may be magnified in the areas where land reclamation is done in the southern and eastern parts of Singapore, right? So what are the opportunities? Let's look at the opportunities. So the opportunities that can be looked into are the national preparedness plans. Okay, so there are plans in terms of tectonic hazards, whereby SCDF have installed sirens. SCDF has also will be the coordinating agency between Singapore Police Force and NEA, and SCDF continues to educate people. Okay, so there are some measures that's being put in place. Okay, there's also the use of tech for monitoring. Okay, there is a use of tech monitoring. Technology is harnessed to monitor tectonic movements. Okay, we do have 7 seismograph stations that gives us data. We are monitoring. We are having up-to-date information that's being collected. Right. And of course, last but not least, okay, we do partners with our regional partners, because they are the ones that are being affected the most. And most of the time when there is something that happens in ASEAN, okay, we send our people there, right? We send our people, like in 2009, we send our people to Padang in Indonesia, Padang Indonesia, not Padang Singapore. Okay, so we do cooperate on a regional level, right? So that's that. Okay, then we are done for 2.2. Let's move on to 2.3. For 2.3, tourism is actually on a scale of regional, local, regional, and global as well. Why do I say that? Okay, you realize that the impacts of tourism is very big for Singapore. Okay, there can be economic impacts, such as during the COVID time, it was pretty bad for the tourism industry, right? There are also social impacts as well. Okay, what are the social impacts? We are looking at a very strict law enforcement that's being publicized. So this deter violent crimes against tourists. So we are a safe place, and there are also environmental impacts. Okay, environmental impacts. This is we are looking at positive impacts whereby there's a growing number of environmentally conscious tourists who are looking for more sustainable recreational options. Okay, so our government has invested quite a huge amount of money, 68.5 million, in the tourism development fund, and SDB continues to promote Bukit Timah Nature Reserve as one of the few primary rainforest area in Singapore. So there are many kind of impacts, right? There are also challenges as well. Okay, challenges. What are the challenges? There could be regional competition. Okay, regionally, Malaysia is also doing well. Indonesia is doing well. Thailand is doing very well in terms of tourism industry. How then can we continue to attract people to come to Singapore? That is the question, right? We need to also there has been a rise of discerning visitors. These visitors, they usually are the venturers. They are the millennials as well. They travel differently, so it is important um, to provide extensive travel information through a variety of online sources to allow them to really look into it. All right, so what are some challenges as well? We have aging population, we have resource constraints, okay, and last but not least, threats from global uncertainty. So tourism industry is always being challenged, right? However, there are opportunities as well, such as the benefits due to a growing Asia, because together as Asia, the economies of China and India has been growing, and this will lead to more people traveling in this Asia region. Okay, there are partnerships with stakeholders to spearhead placemaking initiatives, such as, for example, um, STB is partnering with local communities, okay, to bring out local culture such as the hawker culture. All right, and we are also trialing sustainable solutions as well. For sustainable solutions, we are looking at initiative to develop sustainable and wellness tourism in Singapore. Okay, like for example, RP, there's a School of Hospitality, has incorporated sustainable content. So sustainability is a big thing. Okay, and uh, Sentosa Island is actually looking into being accredited by global platforms to be recognized for their sustainable tourism uh, skills, right? And last but not least, it is about developing skilled workers, right? We are trying to develop skilled workers to continue to sustain the development of tourism. All right, so you can see over here, okay, the challenges can become opportunities. However, when opportunities become unresolved, okay, it will add on to the vulnerabilities of Singapore. So basically, the opportunities can be used, or rather can be framed in such a way that we need to adapt, we need to survive, we need to thrive, and that is from 1.4, that is on resilience, right? So that is that. Okay, for topic 3, Okay, we'll be looking at 3.1 is a very explaining why sustainable development needs to be is important for Singapore. Alright, so have a read at it. I do not have a link to it. Okay, this is actually 3.1. Okay, and we are looking at Singapore's approaches to sustainable development. First of all, that is the development of building up the resilience. Okay, it goes back to 1.4 again. Okay, the first approach is really resilience, building resilience in Singapore, and it is an ongoing process. It is when it involves learning of survive, adapt, and thrive. Right? So many a times, how we have adapted, how we have survived, how we, for example, independence 1965, we did not have an army. We adapt, we survived, we created national service. Right? Without any natural resources, we also adapt, we survive, we industrialize quickly. So those are the strategies that have proven successful in many ways. Okay, second, integrated master planning is very important because our land is so limited, right? It takes a long term. It is a long term approach. Okay, it is a long term approach for integrated master planning, and it involves knowing the demands. Okay, it involves talking to stakeholders. It involves, hang again. What's happening? Okay, just give me a moment. Just hang. Oh no. There you go. There you go. Sorry. Where was I? Okay, I was here. Okay, so integrated master planning, it involves balancing development. How can we balance development, and how can we make sure, okay, we do not just concentrate on economic development but also social and environmental development to create a sustainable sustainable plan. Right, there is a lot of master plan. We can talk about the LTA master plan, the URA master plan, so on and so forth. Those are just different type of master plan, right? And last but not least, we are talking about dynamic urban government. The political leadership is very important. They should and must be able to coordinate policy planning and implementation, which involves different stakeholders. It must be detailed. Okay, it must be detailed. The public service and government institutions must all work together. There must be transparency, accountability, and incorruptibility. Okay, because at the end of the day, you can see that other countries, corrupted government, they achieve nothing. So there needs to be a dynamic urban government that is able to act on their feet. Alright, so that is 3.2. So this is 3.2. Alright, so for 3.3, we are looking at our resilience effort. Okay, we are actually looking at building resilient efforts. Okay, resilience effort, what are we looking at? We are looking at, for example, the environment and climate resilience. We are looking at historically we have been building our efforts. There are mitigation efforts, there are adaptation efforts, we have new water, you have green building master plans, so on and so forth. Basically, we are trying to make sure in terms of environment and climate resilience, we can enhance Singapore's sustainability. To promote environmental and social sustainability, we have built an integrated network of parks, open spaces, and water bodies. We are known as the Garden City. right? So these are the type of resilience that we are talking about. For economic resilience, we're talking about diversifying our connections. We're talking about deepening our connections. We're talking about strengthening business capabilities to innovate. Okay, as we move towards AI, right? We are encouraging Singaporeans to acquire new skills through our skills future, right? So that is to ensure there is economic resilience, and the only resources that we really have is our manpower, is our Singaporeans. So governments are investing so much money, okay, to make sure our economic resilience, okay, improve every year, right? And social resilience, we're talking about um, developing skills. We are talking about mobilizing communities in preparedness measures. We are talking about creating shared spaces. So all these build Singapore's resilience, right? And last but not least, okay, which is 3.4, which is here. What are our future considerations to move forward? Okay, there are three main things. What are our environmental considerations? We need to ensure that we must contribute to maintain the life support systems of the global environment and nature in providing ecosystem services. Ecosystem services are so important for us, okay, even in Singapore, right? And at the same time, our environmental consideration is there are many limitations of Singapore's physical environment, and there could be possible threats, including transboundary haze, okay, including climate change. We are so vulnerable to regional threats, global threats, right? And what are our economic and social considerations? Our economic and social considerations, our economic considerations is always the ability to advance our economy, right? We look at how the transformation of Jurong Island. We look at how we have came from producing industry, manufacturing industry to service industry. We look at some of our social considerations such as commitment and contribution from stakeholders. We look at how private companies have pledged themselves to help Singapore to progress as a whole. Okay, and last but not least, we look at Singapore's political considerations. Singapore must continue to have good governance with strong political willpower, because at the end of the day, when there must be good governance to make sure that there is sufficient resources, okay, there must be commitment to development plans, okay. So while this chapter talks about everything is rosy, there are opportunities, our governments are making a lot of efforts, there are unresolved I would say unresolved limitation and evaluation. So you can see that in terms of water, okay, there are many things that we are doing, but by 2030 is our food going to be really change of dependency? We do not know yet. So that is for the future, right? Hopefully this sums up all the cluster. Make sure you know the examples. This is Singapore, so this will be very familiar to all of you. That's all from Mr. K. Thank you, and this is my last episode. Thank you and have a nice day. Do like and subscribe.